Earlier this year, the Manitoba government committed to creating a $102 million conservation trust fund. The Manitoba Heritage Corporation will be responsible for deciding how annual revenues from the trust fund will be invested into conservation projects throughout Manitoba. Today we have CEO Tim Sopuck, better known as the $100 million man, here to speak on the progress to date of developing the trust and the opportunities it will represent for conservation districts and other organizations. So please help me welcome Tim Sopuck.
Thank you, Gary. I really am pleased to be here at NCBA. I've been in the conservation business. I just added it up the other day. It's almost 39 years, and I'm not sure if I was at NCBA before, so this is my big unveiling. I'm also pleased to say that about 20 minutes ago, the government formally announced the establishment and operation of the Conservation Trust. The news release came out, and I've been kind of waiting on that. I wasn't sure if I could speak until that release came out, but it is. It's out. It's official. I actually was in the minister's office this morning, and I saw the first check. So it's not 100 million yet, but we're getting there. I will convey that applause back to the minister because really the government of Manitoba deserves a lot of credit for what happened here. So my presentation today will provide some background on the trust, and I'll get into the details of how folks can apply for funds. Gabrielle Miller is here with me, one of our program officers, and she'll talk at one point in this presentation about the details of applying for funds. And we'll say that the portal on our website is open today now, so it's actually the trust is official, it's up and running. Just a bit of background. The Conservation Trust was first, the Conservation Trust was first brought up in November of 2017 in the province of Manitoba's Climate and Green Plan document. And there, under the nature pillar, it envisioned the establishment of a conservation trust for the purpose of providing long-term support for nature conservation. And I read that with interest. I'd love to tell you I had a hand in this from the beginning, and that would just be a lie. I, along with many others, were kind of interested in what it meant. Fast forward to today, the way it works is the province of Manitoba is committed to making a contribution of $100 million to an endowment fund. And that endowment fund will be held by the Winnipeg Foundation. That contribution is irrevocable. The province of Manitoba cannot in any way, shape, or form claw that money back. So that is a perpetual, and that money resides with the Winnipeg Foundation, which is really one of Manitoba's great assets. A lot of people don't fully appreciate, but they have almost $1 billion of assets, charitable assets on account. And with that kind of money, they do a very good job of investing, thank goodness. And this is where the Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation comes in. Annual revenues from the trust will come back to the corporation, and we've established a granting program to ensure that that money on an annual basis goes out to folks like you. This was first announced in the March budget, and it received a fair bit of play back then, and then we kind of went underground to get the national agreement signed and a lot of the work behind the scenes to get the granting program up and running. And we've relied on the advice from a wide array of organizations to help us get to where we are today. And where we are today, as I mentioned earlier, is there's a portal on the Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation website, www.hhc.nb.ca. and it takes you into the trust and will provide the details of what it takes to get money out of the trust. It starts now with a call for letters of interest. The call for letters of interest closes on the 15th of January. Groups that pass through that screening stage will be invited to apply for funds, and we hope once we go through that more rigorous process, we will have decisions made and contribution agreements being struck with successful organizations in April or thereabouts. So the trust is unique for a number of reasons. The main one is governments generally don't make proactive commitments to conservation like this, and they generally don't put it into an account where they can never get it back. But that is really what the province of Manitoba has done, and they focused on the purpose statements built around the trust, focus on delivering important ecological goods and services to Manitobans. What does that mean? You know, if you look at it, it's working close more. People have assumed, because the province was also talking about carbon tax and those things, that somehow the conservation trust was inextricably linked to that, and it's not. So it's not about carbon sequestration. Really, it's more about doing things that help to adapt our landscape to the extremes of flood and drought that we're expecting under climate change. So important activities on the land, particularly on our working landscapes, that help us adapt to climate change would be mitigation of floods and droughts, improving water quality. Carbon sequestration is important too, but also soil health, biodiversity, harvestable and other important wildlife species. So this is quite a bit of activity can be supported by the Conservation Trust. We are rolling out this year with a fundamental location eligibility in municipal Manitoba. The trust is intended to focus on working landscapes, and we're saying that really we're going to begin with a focus on the agricultural landscapes. That can be defined more or less by what we call municipal Manitoba. Eligible applicants include community-based groups, provincial groups, or even national groups that have a significant presence in Manitoba. They need to be not-for-profit organizations. Groups that aren't eligible to apply directly to the trust can certainly be included as partners in projects and proposals that come to the trust. As I mentioned, this sort of the flip side, organizations that aren't eligible would be national organizations that do not have a presence in Manitoba. Governments are not eligible to apply, individuals or for-profit organizations. But again, all of those groups can come in as partners with groups that are eligible to apply for funds. I'm just going to go into a discussion of some of the details of the trust. I threw in one line there to see if anyone was paying attention. So actually, when we were putting this presentation together, I said, tell them they can't buy lottery tickets for the trust money. And it stayed, and I never caught it. So there you go, you can't buy lottery tickets. An important area is matching funds. The province of Manitoba wanted a significant leverage of funds from the trust, so the trust will support up to 1/3 of costs for a project. When you do that math, it's the match is a 2-to-1 requirement. That match can be cash or in kind, and I recommend that groups go to the website, read the details to find out how they can meet the challenge of the match, both on the cash and the in-kind side. One thing I will point out right now is that provincial funding is eligible as part of the match, but it can't be more than 50% of the match total. Some of the activities that are not eligible, anything that someone or an organization has to do that's a requirement of a government regulation or a government decision is not eligible. This program is not funding research. It's not funding major events. I'm sorry, NCBA, you can't apply for funds to run your event here. Policy, promotion, or advocacy would not be eligible. Wildlife rehabilitation rearing, and ongoing control of alien and invasive species are some of the things that are not eligible. Again, go to our website to find a better list. But on the eligibility side, the trust can pay for the direct staff costs involved in delivery of a project, contractor, professional services, a lot of the costs that are associated with delivery of projects, right on down to incentive payments. So again, we would like to see trust expenditures focused on activities on the ground. Some of the things that are not eligible, land purchases not eligible, major equipment expenses, research and action. Anyway, you can see the list. We have a fairly extensive list of what's not eligible, but again, I would emphasize to people that we're wanting to focus trust money to activities on the land. We did a little, what do you call it, word cloud, or one of these little things that you can do with the computer nowadays just to see what different words came up when we looked at all of our background material to support the application process. And the word will actually came up quite a bit, so I guess we're waggling our finger quite a bit in the materials. So if you see the word will, you probably want to read the rest of it fairly carefully, because we've tried very hard to provide information that helps you to put together effective proposals. And in a nutshell, we are going to be focused on projects that address an evident need that is a priority of the Conservation Trust. And again, please remember that something that you really want to do and is important to you may or may not be really important to the purpose of the trust. So really inform yourself as to what the trust is focused on achieving and see how your interests align with that. We want to have significant, measurable ecological goods and services outcomes arising from your projects. We want to see that you're engaging with partners. And engagement is more than a letter of support. I've been in the granting game for a long time, and it's pretty easy to show a significant partners list just by calling somebody up and can I get a letter from you. We actually want to see that your project is meaningfully engaging partners. And again, I mentioned the matching funds side is pretty important. And we just throw that last one at the bottom. We are expecting a lot more projects or proposals than money available. And I should talk about the money right now. This year was intended to be a startup year. We are not at a full funding level. Once the trust is fully invested, at current rates of return, we'd expect about a $5 million annual pool of revenues available. We're starting this year with about $2.5 million available in the revenue pool. So I'm going to talk now about the funding categories. We're drilling down into the weeds somewhat. We've established 5 streams of funding for the trust. The first one, and the largest pool, I guess you could say, within the trust is something called Watersheds. Here, we're looking for projects that have activities that are directly tied to established priorities under integrated watershed plans. We want activities that have water quality and quantity as a key outcome. However, we also want to see activities that provide other EG&S benefits, such as biological diversity, soil health, those kinds of things. So projects that have a strong focus on water, but also demonstrate the ability to deliver on other ecological goods and services should rate well, and it should be also tied to established watershed plans. This year, we've established a maximum in this category of $125,000. Second major category, we're just simply calling habitat and wildlife. Here, we're looking for activities that enhance habitat quality and quantity. It could be also activities that enhance populations of key wildlife species or groups of species. And again, like the watershed category, we would like to see proposals that tie to an established plan, either for wildlife or habitat or both. If you have activities that aren't tied to an established plan, then you would have to give additional reasons and justification as to why your project is important. Here, the maximum available would be $100,000. These next three categories are much smaller pools, but they're also quite specific. We have a category called Connecting People to Nature, where we would like to see activities that enhance green space, either in or near population centers as well. We could be supporting information education programs that help people to connect directly with nature. In this age of increasing urbanization, computerization, and I've got a sneeze coming on. I don't know how I'm going to manage this one. It's important that we think about that, particularly in this room. We think about how do we connect people to nature. It's one thing to do what we do, and we know all the good reasons why we do it. But if people don't care about what's going out in the landscape, it gets harder to sell these programs. So we feel it's important. It may not be a big part of the puzzle, but we want to have an impact here. The second category actually has two subcategories. We're calling it innovation and conservation planning. Again, not a lot of money, but quite tightly focused. Category A is demonstration projects that focus on new approaches to conservation of land, water, and wildlife. People may have the earlier presentation was talking about, really, we're not getting participation the way we'd like to. So maybe somebody's got an innovative way of cultivating engagement by key landowners. And that is an idea that could be supported under this category. The second one, large area planning initiatives. Here we're saying that there may be important gaps in planning that are limiting good and needed conservation activities. So if the case can be made, either, for example, on a basin scale or an eco-regional scale, that an important planning exercise needs to occur, then there is a small amount of money available here as well. And lastly, soil health. Again, not a lot of funds here, but it's easy to forget that it all begins with the soil, and we didn't want to be accused of forgetting the soil. There's all kinds of people around. Ryan Kennard would give me hell if I didn't do something on the soil regeneration side of things. But here we want to see the focus on perennial cover systems. So people can come up with an interesting soil health project that focuses on perennial cover management or enhancement. That's the sort of thing we're looking for. So we're now at the annual call for proposals. As I mentioned, the portal for our website came up. Oop, what did I do? We're back. So we've been at this a little while. We've had a few iterations. How are we going to disperse the money? So we started off with this. There's one of our younger. I was going to say that's Gabrielle when she was little. She was training for the job, but not all. So there's a two-stage application process, and I mentioned earlier, it starts with a letter of interest, and then those that are accepted proceed to a full application process, and we go from there. And the thing is, we're doing this entirely online. This is a paperless process, and I know that sounds really cool. I think it's really neat, and I advocated for it, but I don't know a thing about it. So have Gabrielle take care of the next part of this presentation. So, Gabrielle, why don't you take over?
See if I can get this working. My mic skills are a little lacking. So we're going to have as Tim mentioned, a completely online system. All of the resources that we've developed for the Conservation Trust, all of the application information manitobahabitat.ca. We'll have that, all of our contact information up on a slide later, so that can be noted. And all of the application reporting will be submitted through an online grant portal, which will be accessed through the Conservation Trust website. Whoops, a little too far ahead there. So on MHHC's main website, in the upper right corner, we'll have the access to the Conservation Trust website through a button that is highlighted on this slide, which will bring us into the Conservation Trust portal. So we have sections on resources for before you begin applying, on how to apply, maps, background information, frequently asked questions, and this will also be how you link to the online portal itself. All organizations have to begin by registering through the online grant portal, and that has to be done in a single sitting. Beyond that point, everything else you do in the portal you'll be able to save, or in some cases not save. The system will save automatically for you, and you'll be able to come back at any time. We have developed a user guide on how to use the system. It's a fairly straightforward system, but the user guide will also be available on the Conservation Trust website. The application process will begin with an eligibility quiz. This basically just saves your time so that you can determine before you put the time into an application whether your project is going to be eligible or whether your organization is going to be eligible. After completing the eligibility quiz, you will have access the letter of interest form. And eligible LOI submissions will be invited to submit a full application after we've reviewed all of the LOI submissions. The letter of intent form, or letter of interest rather, form itself is short and straightforward. We're hoping that this will be used more as a planning stage so that organizations have the opportunity to take time to determine what you want to do, who your partners are, identify the budget, identify match, and identify project partners that are compatible and can work with you. And as well, things like whether your project is achievable in the time proposed. I'm going to be one of the people answering the phone. If you have any questions, we'll provide contact information at the end of this presentation. We'll be available by email and by phone. And I guess I'll hand it back to Tim again.
Yeah. Okay, so the actual application approval process is pretty standard. We have an administrative review, a technical advisory committee has been established, and then we will go through that process of ranking proposals. And at the end, the final arbiter of our proposal slate is actually the MHAC Board of Directors. Don't even try to read this, but I just want to point out that what we will be looking for in proposals is we're going to look hard at your activities. Do you have sensible activities? Do you have good ways to measure what you're doing? If you're saying you're going to do wetland restoration, are you going to measure acres? Are you going to have acre feet? How many plugs? That sort of thing. We want metrics. We want to measure your outputs so that we can translate that to the outcomes that we're looking for: water quality, water quantity, biodiversity. So think hard about that. That's what we will be looking for in all proposals. At the end of the day, grant making is an art, not a science. And as I come to see it more and more, reviewing grants is an art, not a science. We are trying to take the guesswork out of it as much as we can. But this is a learning year for us. It's a learning year for you. So we're both really embarking on a new journey with a new source of revenues. And one specific thing we're going to do, anybody who applies is going to have to fill out a survey just so you can tell us how awful it was. And if it's maybe a little less than awful, that would be good to hear too. No, actually, we put in a heck of a lot of time. I think you'll find it's rigorous. We hope you also say that it's fair. And it applies to what we're trying to achieve. So at the end of the day, this is the contact information. Please check our website. We have phone numbers here. Those phone numbers will be on the website as well. I can't be here for the rest of the the event, unfortunately, but Gabrielle will be here. She'll either be circulating or will be at the MHAC booth. So if you have specific questions, I would suggest you chat with her. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's great news, and we've been waiting for this, and now we've certainly got some, we know how the program's coming, what the timelines are, and that's great to hear. Long awaited for that we now got to see in motion. I'm sure there are going to be questions, and what I'm going to, in order to make this run as smoothly as possible, I'm going to ask anybody who's got questions to come down to the mics, and we'll take the questions from the mic. That way we're not moving back and forth. I know there's got to be questions, because this is one of the most positive announcements. We've had the announcement, but now we've actually got the structure of how this is going to work, and it's real good to hear this. Okay, so we've got one person at the mic right now, and we've got some students here that are waiting to take a mic up. Let's leave one mic down and let's go up with one. Go ahead.
Thank you. Will you be considering multi-year funding for multi-year projects or renewable funding?
That's a good question. It's still somewhat of a question. This year, we're saying people can apply for 1 or 2 year funding. As we proceed down the road, given it's going to be an annual opportunity, right now we're landing on people will be expected to show substantial completion on a project or a good path to completion before they can apply again. Your larger question about multi-year funding, we're not there yet, but we certainly have to look at it.
Thank you. Anybody right over there, we've got a question?
I had a question about if the project is approved by you and it consists of 2 different, like if it involves soil and it involves informing or making awareness, will the funding be will there be more funding available if it covers more than one?
Again, yeah, it's a good question. We have set up the 5 funding streams, and we're going to expect, or actually, grantees are going to have to pick the stream they think they're going to be the strongest. If we get a letter of interest and we think maybe an organization has applied to the wrong area and is strong in a different one than they've applied to, we will make that recommendation before they proceed to an application. But that's how we're starting, and it's something we know we have to address down the road, and we have to see what we get with projects before I can give you a harder answer than that.
Any more questions?
I noticed you said that municipalities are ineligible.
That's right.
Why is that?
It was a fundamental decision that governments should not be applying to this fund. But any municipality that teams up with an eligible organization can certainly be part of a project. It's just they can't be the lead applicant.
With the conservation district, could they be the lead applicant?
Absolutely. That's a good thing. I got out of here, but
You're done.
Any more questions? Right. While they're going to the the next person. Just to follow up on that question, if there's 2-to-1 funding required, if the Conservation District applied with a grant and part of that funding was coming from a municipality, is that eligible in the funding partnership?
Absolutely. It's not provincial funding. It's matched.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, is there a timeline on when or how soon the money has to be spent? Like if you bought it, say, in May or June of this year, does that money have to be spent in this year? Can it carry over? We're looking at larger sums to help with it.
We are saying right now that when groups apply, they should think hard about what timeline they need. If they need 2 years to carry out a project, that's probably how they should apply. We will not, until we're told otherwise, we will not have the same kind of rules around year end that you find with government funding. I have to keep reminding myself, this is not government funding. This is actually funding that comes from the Winnipeg Foundation. So groups will have some flexibility in terms of if they want to go with a longer term, say a 2-year project, they could, maybe most of their expenditures realistically happen in year 2. But if it changes over time, we could probably make that adjustment between years. So we have flexibility that way.
We got another question over here.
First of all, excellent, Tim. Thank you very much. This has been really good. One question on research costs. I know it's all for applied, on-the-ground projects, but how would you classify something like water quality monitoring or greenhouse gas monitoring, something like that? Would you lump that under research, or is that qualified?
It's a good gray area that you pick at here, Richard. I'd be inclined to see that more on the research side. If it's an activity that's tied very specifically to a project output that you have to measure in a more rigorous way than just acre feet of water, then I think that's how you would make the case for it. But we did have to make a fundamental decision to say that basic and applied research is not where the trust is going.
So if we call it monitoring to measure a milestone, that's okay?
It has to be tied to a specific milestone, tied to a project. You guys, you're going to hammer me on that one. I don't have a chance.
Really looking forward to everything to the application. Thank you so much. My question is, this morning we heard a lot of good things from Josh, talking about, looking at the programming, figuring out what's working, what's not, finding the analysis where, you can predict the amount of landowners that are going to take up the program. Would having him or an organization like that being part of analyzing the programs that we're delivering to kind of have that end result, would that be considered a planning partnership? Could we work it into a planning program?
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not going to be a program officer. I think the way I would cut it is that maybe the work you do to figure out, to say maybe develop some good ideas about what might work as opposed to what's not working now. That activity, more of a research activity, if you will, analytical activity, would not be eligible. Or we want to implement that new approach, new idea, I would think that would fall into the innovation category. We're taking a new approach to figuring out how to deliver small dams because nobody wants a small dam anymore. And we have, some research has told us that this approach may produce results. So maybe that's when you come to the trust and say, help us implement this new approach.
So we would do some of the background legwork on the statistics and then saying, we're going to try tweaking our program this way. Can you help us out with some?
I think that's how I can answer your question.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, Mike.
going to a liquor convention, want to know if the planning of the project can be funded through your trust fund.
We, on the trust side, we really wouldn't be paying for planning activities, and we wouldn't be paying for any activity that occurs before we execute a contribution agreement. However, we do have some criteria that allow for some upfront work to be applied as match.
Is there a limit?
Can you speak closer to the mic? I think people are having a hard time.
Is there a limit? Is there a proportion inside the entire funding that has to be limited?
Right.
Planning.
We're not trying to prescribe to people what it takes to make a good project. What we're saying is that we can't start spending money until we have an agreement with the group. However, knowing that work has to occur very often before an agreement is struck, those activities could be eligible as match.
Thank you.
And I just want to say generally, a lot of people think heat banks, like as if I did something here. And anything I can do to help facilitate this project is great. I mean, and staff like Gabrielle and others. But really, I mean, the province of Manitoba is really to be commended. It's their money, and they're giving it away to the Winnipeg Foundation and allowing this opportunity for all of us to figure out the best way to spend it over a long period.
I thank you very much, Tim. I mean, this was excellent news. We were not aware of this moving forward before you got up on stage, so this is certainly news that we're hearing for the first time here, and thank you very much. Thank you for running this program. We look forward to working with you, and certainly along with the $100 million, there's certainly going to come some challenges that we heard with the questions, but at least we're moving through with it, and we're going to find ways to deal with it. So thank you very much. Big hand.